You won't believe what lies beneath Antarctica, the secret they tried to bury. They said it was just ice, endless, silent, untouched. But beneath the frozen surface of Antarctica, something has been stirring. Something so ancient, so vast, that even the most powerful nations on Earth have fought to keep it hidden. For decades, satellites have captured shapes that shouldn't exist. Perfect geometric patterns, buried beneath miles of ice, where no civilization should have ever stood. Scientists dismissed them as illusions, until the evidence became impossible to ignore. This is the last place on Earth untouched by time, or so we were told. But what if Antarctica isn't a barren wasteland at all? What if, beneath its glacial tomb, lies the last memory of a forgotten world? One deliberately erased from history. What if everything we've been taught about our planet's past, the origins of humanity, the rise and fall of civilizations, has been rewritten to keep one truth buried beneath the ice? In 1946, the U.S. Navy launched Operation High Jump, the largest expedition ever sent to the South Pole. Officially, it was a scientific mission. Unofficially, it became something else entirely. Reports of flying discs, unexplained aircraft, and a mission abruptly cut short after only weeks fueled decades of speculation. What exactly did Admiral Byrd encounter? Why did his final reports remain classified for nearly 60 years? And why did world powers suddenly declare Antarctica off-limits just a few years later? It's not just conspiracy, it's data. In 2001, NASA satellites detected powerful magnetic anomalies beneath the ice. Energy signatures so concentrated they appeared artificial. Then came the sonar readings. Massive voids, perfect cubic chambers stretching for miles, buried more than 2 kilometers below the surface. The shapes were not random, they were designed. Something built them, long before ice covered this land. But who? Ancient maps tell a story that shouldn't exist. The Pyramidal map, drawn in 1513, accurately outlines the coastline of Antarctica, without ice. Modern sonar confirmed the map's precision centuries later. Historians claim coincidence, cartographers call it impossible. Yet there it is, a 500-year-old document showing details known only through 20th century technology. So the question is no longer whether something lies beneath Antarctica. The question is who, or what, put it there. You're about to enter the world's final frontier, a place where history, science, and forbidden truth converge. A place so dangerous to established knowledge that its very existence has been buried beneath treaties, silence, and lies. Stay until the end. Because once you hear what's been uncovered, the evidence that's been suppressed, you'll never look at the world or at humanity the same way again. This is the story of Antarctica's hidden secret, the last mystery on Earth, and the truth they tried to bury under the ice that remembers. For thousands of years, the ice has been a witness, preserving not only the past, but perhaps the proof that history itself is incomplete. Beneath Antarctica's crushing cold, scientists have drilled deep cores of ancient ice, each layer a frozen chapter in Earth's memory. But in recent decades, those layers have begun to reveal something the textbooks never mentioned. Evidence of a landscape that once bloomed with rivers, forests, and warmth. Satellite thermal imaging has now confirmed what some researchers whispered for decades. Antarctica was once temperate, a thriving ecosystem that supported complex life. Fossilized plants, pollen, and even dinosaur remains have been unearthed beneath the glaciers. But there's something stranger. Fossils of microscopic algae that shouldn't be there at all, dated to a time when the continent should have been frozen solid. The evidence doesn't fit. If Antarctica was once warm, it wasn't by chance. Something changed, violently. Scientists suspect a cataclysmic event, a pole shift, an impact, or a sudden crust displacement that buried the continent under its eternal frost. But if that's true, then what else did it bury? Could entire civilizations have vanished overnight, entombed beneath the ice, erased not by time, but by the planet itself? In 2016, A team of researchers using ground-penetrating radar discovered something extraordinary beneath the ice sheet near Wilkes Land. A circular mass nearly 300 miles wide, buried under 1.5 miles of ice. Its symmetry was perfect. Its magnetic signature was unnatural. Some scientists quietly compared it to an impact crater. Others believed it was something else entirely. A structure, not a scar. That region of Wilkes Land has since become one of the most restricted areas in Antarctica. No civilian expeditions are allowed. No high-resolution satellite imagery is released. Even Google Earth shows distortions and pixelation in its coordinates. Why? If this were merely geological, there would be no need for secrecy. But the deeper you look, the stranger it gets. Seismic data collected by independent research vessels reveal hollow voids beneath the ice, massive caverns filled with warmer air, some stretching for dozens of kilometers. Within these chambers, sonar readings have detected straight lines, right angles, and uniform densities, features that nature rarely creates. The deeper they scan, the clearer it becomes. Something is down there, something that doesn't belong. Officially, the scientific explanation remains simple: ice deformation, refraction, sensor error. But among those who have seen the data firsthand, doubt is spreading. Could these caverns be remnants of an ancient human settlement, or something far older, built long before humans walked the earth? Declassified U.S. Navy documents mention ice domes of unknown origin. Soviet archives reference structures too deep for explanation. Even recent whistleblowers within research teams have spoken, anonymously, about things they were told never to discuss again. A veteran geophysicist once described it this way: "The ice down there feels engineered." It sounds absurd, until you realize that almost every modern expedition to Antarctica is either classified or under international supervision. Since the signing of the Antarctic Treaty in 1959, no private entity can own land, exploit resources, or explore certain regions without permission from multiple governments. In practice, that means a continent the size of the US and Mexico combined has become one of the most heavily restricted places on Earth. But what are they protecting? A fragile ecosystem, or a secret history? In the next chapter, we'll follow the trail of maps, logs, and eyewitness reports that suggest that centuries ago, someone, or something, already knew what lay beneath the ice. And if those records are real, it means Antarctica isn't the end of the world. It's where the story began. Maps that should not exist. For centuries, humanity believed it discovered Antarctica only in 1820. A blank space on the map, a land of endless ice that no explorer could reach, let alone chart. And yet, centuries before telescopes, satellites, or radar existed, someone had already drawn it in astonishing detail. In 1513, a Turkish admiral named Piri Reis compiled a world map from older sources. Etched on gazelle skin, it displayed the continents of Europe, Africa, and South America with remarkable accuracy for its time. But there was something impossible on it. A southern landmass stretching far beyond the known world, drawn precisely where Antarctica lies today. Even more shocking, the map depicted its coastline without ice. Mountains, rivers, and bays, features that only became visible to modern sonar scanning in the 20th century. When the map was rediscovered in 1929 in Istanbul's Topkapi Palace, historians dismissed it as artistic guesswork.
Yet the accuracy of the coastline matched modern seismic profiles of the continent's subglacial terrain, a match no artist of the 1500s could have made. Harvard cartographers and later U.S. Air Force analysts confirmed the data on the Piri Reis map was real. Someone mapped Antarctica before it was covered in ice. But how? Geologists estimate that Antarctica has been frozen for over 6 million years.
If those measurements are correct, no civilization known to science could have seen its shores uncovered. That means one of two things. Either our timeline is wrong, or the map is a surviving fragment of a civilization that existed long before recorded history, one capable of surveying the planet with precision we only achieved in the modern age. the Piri Reis map is not alone. Other medieval charts, the Orontius Phineas map of 1531, the Haji Ahmed map of 1559, also depict a vast southern continent, drawn with coastlines, mountains, and river systems now buried under ice. Each claims to have been compiled from ancient sources. What ancient sources? No one knows. Those originals have never been found. It's as if someone in the distant past had mapped the world as it was before the flood, before the ice reclaimed its secrets. The more scientists tried to explain the anomaly, the stranger it became. Radiocarbon dating confirmed the animal skin's authenticity. The handwriting and pigments matched the early 16th century. The coordinates, however, did not. They aligned to a grid system that predated the modern concept of latitude and longitude, as if copied from a far older global reference system. Some researchers now suspect that the Piri Reis map was not drawn by Piri Reis at all, but rather from a lost world's archives, preserved across generations through whispers and fragments. In his own notes, Piri Reis wrote something that scholars prefer to ignore. These maps were drawn according to the writing of ancient kings who explored the seven seas. Some of these were drawn in the time of Alexander the Great. If true, this suggests the existence of global navigation long before the rise of Greece, Egypt, or Sumer. But there's more. The cartographer specifically mentioned that one of his sources came from a map of the sea by the ancients which shows the southern lands where ice now reigns. What ancients? If these records are real, they describe a seafaring civilization with knowledge of the entire planet, one capable of mapping coastlines now hidden under glaciers. But such a civilization doesn't exist in official history. It has no name, no monuments, no textbooks. Unless, of course, its monuments are buried beneath Antarctica itself. When the map was presented to the U.S. Navy Hydrographic Office in the 1950s, Commander Harold Z. Ohlmeyer wrote, "The geographical detail shown in the lower part of the map agrees very remarkably with results obtained by the Swedish-British Antarctic expedition. This indicates the coastline was mapped before it was covered by ice. We have no idea how this data could be obtained with the knowledge of 1513. Those words vanished quietly into classified archives. For decades, no further studies were published. Then, in the late 1990s, when digital imaging revealed subglacial mountain ranges exactly where the Piri Reis map showed them, the controversy resurfaced. The response from academia was immediate. Coincidence. Statistical anomaly. Case closed. But coincidences don't last centuries. As satellite mapping improved, new anomalies appeared. Beneath the ice, formations emerged, vast regular geometries that shouldn't exist in nature. Triangular mountain peaks forming near-perfect pyramids. Valleys cut with mathematical symmetry. Circular depressions that resemble ancient structures. The data was public, for a moment. Then, without explanation, key images were removed from NASA's open archives. The links went dark. The servers were re-indexed. When journalists questioned the agency, the response was routine. We regularly update imagery databases. But researchers who had saved the files noticed something. The deletions aligned exactly with coordinates marked on the Piri Reis and Orontius Phineas maps. Could it be that what these maps depict, land before the ice, is not merely ancient geography but the ruins of something older? A civilization erased not by time, but by a deliberate act of nature or design. The implications are staggering. If Antarctica was once ice-free, it would have been one of the most habitable continents on Earth, rich in resources, with mild climate and open seas, the perfect cradle for early civilization. And if humanity's memory begins only after that world froze, what does that say about how many times history has restarted? Every great flood myth, every legend of a world before ours, might not be metaphor at all. They might be fractured memories of an era when the poles shifted, the oceans rose, and the last advanced society vanished beneath the ice. In the next chapter, we'll follow the trail from ancient maps to modern whistleblowers, explorers, pilots, and scientists who have seen what lies below and were ordered to stay silent. Some lost their careers, others their lives. But the truth they found in Antarctica is more than a lost city. It's a warning, carved into ice, waiting for the world to listen. Operation High Jump and the Vanished Files. In the aftermath of World War II, as the world rebuilt from ashes, a mission unlike any other quietly began. It was called Operation High Jump, and officially, it was a US Navy expedition to explore Antarctica for scientific research. Unofficially, it became one of the most mysterious and controversial military operations in modern history. In August 1946, Admiral Richard E. Byrd, one of America's most respected polar explorers, led more than 4,700 men, 13 ships, and 33 aircraft toward the most remote continent on Earth. It was the largest expedition ever sent to the South Pole, larger even than some wartime fleets. The official explanation: to establish a research base and test equipment in extreme conditions. But insiders whispered another motive: a race to uncover something buried under the ice before anyone else did. The mission began smoothly. Ships cut through the frozen seas, aircraft scanned the endless white, and scientists established outposts for data collection. But then, only a few weeks after it started, everything changed. The expedition was abruptly terminated. The official reason? Unfavorable weather conditions. Yet logs and radio transmissions tell a different story. Pilots reported sightings of flying discs maneuvering at impossible speeds, metallic objects emerging from beneath the ice and vanishing into the clouds. Equipment malfunctioned. Radios went dead. A few aircraft never returned. Survivors were ordered to silence. Within weeks, Admiral Byrd was recalled to Washington. Operation High Jump had ended 6 months early. When Byrd finally spoke to the press in Chile, his words were strange and unsettling. He warned that the United States must be prepared to confront enemy aircraft that can fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds. The statement was printed in the El Mercurio newspaper in March 1947 and then buried by history. The logs from Operation High Jump were classified. Many still are. But fragments have surfaced through leaks and declassified archives, painting a disturbing picture of what Byrd's team may have encountered. Documents mention unidentified aerial phenomena, magnetic distortions, and losses of personnel due to extreme conditions. Yet what those conditions truly were remains unsaid. Soon after, world powers began to act strangely. In 1959, just 12 years later, the Antarctic Treaty was signed, an unprecedented global agreement declaring the continent off-limits to all military activity and resource exploration. On the surface, it was a peace accord, but behind the curtain, it looked more like a quarantine. What could possibly unite rival superpowers, nations in the grip of the Cold War, into agreeing to lock down an entire continent forever? The deeper one looks into Operation High Jump, the more questions emerge. Why were parts of Byrd's personal journal redacted? Why did several members of his crew vanish from public record? And why did Admiral Byrd himself, after decades of fame, retreat into silence until his death in 1957? Some believe Byrd stumbled upon something extraordinary beneath the ice, something that challenged human understanding of history and perhaps even of species. Others suggest he discovered evidence of an ancient technological remnant, the remains of a civilization that existed long before our own. In the decades that followed, whispers grew louder. Operation Deep Freeze, Operation Argus, follow-up missions disguised as scientific ventures, returned to Antarctica with secret objectives. Nuclear-powered submarines conducted magnetic readings in restricted zones. Some claimed these missions found massive voids beneath the ice, caverns large enough to house entire cities, emanating electromagnetic signatures far stronger than any natural formation. One declassified report from 1960 describes heat anomalies consistent with subsurface energy sources. The data indicated internal warmth, not geothermal, but radiant, structured, controlled, as if something beneath the ice was still active. The story deepens when we follow the trail into Wilkes Land, the same region where radar later revealed a massive circular anomaly buried 2 miles below the surface, a formation nearly 300 miles across. Scientists called it a crater, but its magnetic profile was unlike any known impact site. It pulsed, cyclically, like a machine. Independent researchers analyzed gravitational readings and concluded that the object was metallic, dense, structured, hollow in places. The geometry suggested design. Theorists compared it to an ancient reactor, while others proposed it could be the remnants of a prehistoric facility, buried when the continent froze. Soon after those findings were made public in early 2006, satellite data from that region was suddenly restricted. High-resolution images of Wilkes Land were blurred or removed entirely. Google Earth coordinates that once revealed strange geometric shapes beneath the ice now show nothing but smoothed-over white. Coincidence or censorship? Every new discovery seems to vanish as quickly as it appears. Scientists who publish anomalous data face funding cuts. Expeditions are abruptly cancelled. Research vessels report communication malfunctions the moment they cross certain latitudes. Yet the fragments that survive form a pattern, a narrative hidden in plain sight. It begins with ancient maps drawn long before modern civilization. It continues through wartime expeditions shrouded in secrecy. And it leads inevitably to one question that no government dares to answer. What lies beneath Antarctica? What was powerful enough, or sacred enough, to unify every major nation in silence? Could it be remnants of a forgotten civilization? An ancient power source? Or something far older, something that predates even humanity itself? Whatever it is, it's not dead. Because the magnetic fields beneath the Wilkes Land anomaly still move. They fluctuate. They pulse, as if something buried deep beneath the ice is waiting to wake up. The whispers beneath the ice. The deeper scientists dig beneath Antarctica, the less sense the continent makes. What began as a frozen desert has become a puzzle that threatens to rewrite the story of life on Earth. Because beneath those endless miles of ice, something is happening. Something alive, something intelligent, or something ancient that refuses to die. It started with a sound. In 1991, oceanographers detected a low-frequency noise coming from deep beneath the Antarctic waters. The sound was unlike anything ever recorded, a single repeating tone traveling across thousands of miles of ocean. It wasn't seismic, and it wasn't mechanical. It became known simply as the bloop. At first, scientists thought it might be ice cracking. But the pattern was rhythmic, consistent, almost like a signal. The source was traced to a remote area near the Ross Sea, the same region rumored to conceal subglacial caverns large enough to swallow mountains. For decades, the bloop was dismissed as a curiosity. Then, new recordings appeared. In 2016, a different sound emerged from deep below Wilkes Land, the same coordinates as the massive magnetic anomaly. This time, it wasn't just one tone, but a series of pulses, regular and structured, like the heartbeat of something buried under miles of frozen silence. NASA's thermal satellites soon detected heat signatures emanating from the same region, rectangular and geometric. They weren't natural patterns. They looked engineered. The data showed zones of warm air beneath the ice, expanding and contracting rhythmically, as if responding to some internal energy source. When these findings leaked, agencies quickly labeled them instrumental errors. But independent researchers disagreed. One thermal analyst described the pattern as pulsed heat, the signature of a controlled reaction. In other words, something under the ice was generating power. The question is, power for what? Not far from that location lies a chain of subglacial lakes, the largest being Lake Vostok, sealed under 2 miles of ice for over 15 million years. When Russian scientists drilled into it in 2012, they expected sterile water. What they found was unexplainable. Microbial life unlike anything on Earth. DNA sequences that didn't match any known organism, structures that looked engineered under the microscope, hexagonal, crystalline, symmetrical. The team released a brief report, and then silence. Within months, all research data from Vostok was classified by the Russian government. Shortly after, Dr. Sergei Bulat, the lead researcher, disappeared from public view. When he resurfaced years later, he refused interviews and stated only that some things under the ice should never be disturbed. That phrase, should never be disturbed, appears again and again, whispered through decades of classified reports. American, Russian, British, and French expeditions have all recorded anomalies they couldn't explain. Some mention walls of smooth rock buried under ice, too perfect to be natural. Others describe metallic fragments retrieved from boreholes only to have them confiscated. In 2018, a European Space Agency satellite detected a cluster of heat anomalies arranged in a hexagonal pattern more than 400 miles across. The configuration resembled a city, grids, corridors, perimeters. When the data reached public repositories, it vanished within days. Analysts trying to re-access the coordinates found them restricted. Then, there's the question of what the ice itself remembers. Ground-penetrating radar from NASA's Operation Icebridge revealed structures far beneath the surface, not chaotic, but aligned. Lines, walls, and perfect right angles carved into bedrock. Geologists claimed it was crustal folding. But when the raw imaging data was analyzed frame by frame, a shape emerged. A symmetrical complex resembling a pyramid, 2,000 feet tall, surrounded by smaller geometric forms. To dismiss it, authorities released a statement calling it a mountain that coincidentally resembles a pyramid. But when compared to known natural peaks, the formation's dimensions were too exact. 3 sides, 1.1 ratio, perfect alignment to true north. The same precision found in the pyramids of Giza. Coincidence again? Perhaps. But how many coincidences does it take before a pattern becomes evidence? Now, consider this. In the past decade, multiple high-ranking officials, from defense contractors to intelligence agencies, have made veiled references to ancient structures and unexplained phenomena under Antarctica. Former military pilots have reported energy readings so intense that their instruments malfunctioned mid-flight. One, who spoke anonymously, said, "It wasn't just radiation or magnetism. It felt like being near a power source, something alive, something pulsing. It's almost as if the continent itself is humming, a machine buried beneath time." Some believe these signals are remnants of a pre-human civilization, a society so advanced it harnessed energy directly from the Earth. Others claim the structures are not human at all, that Antarctica may hide something far older, something that predates even life as we know it. But if that's true, why the secrecy? Why would every major power on Earth sign a treaty to ban exploration, mining, and settlement on an entire continent? Why are there still zones classified as off-limits to all civilian research? Why are satellite images constantly censored or blurred? Because if the truth beneath the ice were ever revealed, it would shatter everything: religion, science, history, power. The very foundation of what it means to be human. Perhaps that's why they keep it buried. Because Antarctica doesn't just hide the past. It hides our origin. And maybe our destiny. The silence of truth. History has always been written by the victors. But what happens when the victors are not people, but time itself? When entire civilizations, ideas, and truths are erased not by conquest, but by silence, buried so deep beneath the world's coldest continent that even the memory of their existence fades into myth. For centuries, Antarctica has been portrayed as a place of nothingness, ice, emptiness, desolation. But the evidence we've followed tells another story. A story of design, not chaos. A story of intelligence buried under frost. From the impossible maps that charted it before discovery, to the secret expeditions that tried to uncover it, to the magnetic pulses still echoing beneath the ice, every thread leads to the same question. What was here before us? And maybe even more unsettling, why was it erased? When Admiral Byrd returned from Operation High Jump, he was no longer the same man. His journals, once filled with scientific curiosity, turned dark, reflective, almost haunted. Some researchers claim that his private notes, found years after his death, describe encounters with great shining cities beneath the ice and beings older than mankind itself. Whether apocryphal or authentic, they capture something deeper. A sense that Antarctica is not merely a place, but a memory. Because what's buried there may not just rewrite our past, it may explain it. Consider the legends that echo through human history. A golden age before the flood, when the world was warmer, when gods walked among men. Every ancient civilization, from Sumer to Egypt, from the Vedas of India to the myths of the Andes, speaks of a time when the poles shifted, the oceans rose, and knowledge was lost. The same knowledge that seems to resurface faintly in the geometry of pyramids, in the precision of megaliths, and in the forbidden maps drawn from civilizations we no longer remember. What if these are not separate myths, but scattered memories of the same catastrophe, a global erasure that began in Antarctica? The evidence is subtle, fragmented, and yet undeniable. Ancient cartography showing coastlines that shouldn't exist. Magnetic anomalies that behave like dormant machinery. Heat patterns that rise and fall in rhythm as though breathing. A continent sealed by treaty, locked by law, and guarded by silence. It's as if someone, or something, wants the ice to remain unbroken. And yet, cracks are forming. Not just in the glaciers, but in the walls of secrecy. In 2023, a small research drone, operated by a private university in New Zealand, accidentally captured thermal data from a restricted zone near the Queen Maud Mountains. The readings showed not ice, not stone, but metal, vast, uniform, arranged in hexagonal patterns deep beneath the surface. The footage was confiscated within 48 hours. The lead scientist's online presence disappeared days later. The story never reached mainstream media. Still, the whispers spread. Pilots, researchers, satellite engineers, people who have seen things they can't explain, all saying the same thing. There's something there. Something alive. Maybe it's not a city. Maybe it's not technology. Maybe it's something older, a biological intelligence that's been waiting, adapting, observing beneath the frozen crust. After all, Antarctica is the most isolated environment on Earth. What better place to hide, or to survive? And if it's been there for millions of years, watching as species rise and fall, what does that make us? Explorers? Intruders? Or the next cycle of a story that keeps repeating itself? Because there's one pattern that keeps emerging in history: a rise, a fall, and a silence. Every time humanity approaches a breakthrough that challenges its understanding of existence, that knowledge vanishes, burned, buried, classified. Atlantis, Alexandria, and now Antarctica. Perhaps we were never meant to find what sleeps beneath. Perhaps awakening it would be the last mistake we ever make. But even if the truth is dangerous, it cannot be buried forever. Ice melts, secrets crack, and time remembers. Someday soon, as the poles continue to shift and the glaciers retreat, the world will see what has been hidden. And when that happens, everything, our history, our origin, our faith, will be questioned. Because the greatest discovery in human history won't come from the stars above us. It will come from the ice beneath our feet. And when the last layer of Antarctica melts away, the world will finally face the question we've been avoiding since the beginning of time. What if we weren't the first?